So we titled this Don't Be Tight-Fisted, but I want you to read the verse that we have, and then we can kind of talk about sometimes it's hard not to hang on to what we have depending on the economy or our financial situation, because sometimes we get fearful. So what do you got?
This is Deuteronomy 15, verse 7 and 8. So it's Old Testament, but it's a pattern that Paul and the other disciples, followed in a continuous way. Deuteronomy 15:7. If anyone is poor among your fellow Israelites in any of the towns of the land the Lord your God is giving you, do not be hard-hearted or tight-fisted toward them. Rather, be open-handed and freely lend them whatever they need. Wow.
Yeah, what catches my ear right away is what God gave you.
Yes. Yes. That's a good point.
Yeah, that just stuck right out to me. The land that God gave you, and he talks about don't be tight-fisted. He gave it to you. But then our heads start spinning sometimes when the economy's bad, or maybe somebody lost their job or whatever it may be, and then they start to
Yeah, it even goes all the way to your ability to function. God has given you so many gifts. You and I and all of us, we have just been so blessed in so many ways if we stop and think and realize it. And yet it is, like you said, so easy to be kind of holding on to our stuff and keeping stuff for ourselves. And I was reading this morning as I go through the Bible in my kind of devotional time, that how there was a habit among the disciples of giving to the poor. You see it every so often discussed. That it wasn't a big deal, but they gave consistently from the sound of it. And that's a pattern that's thousands of years kind of in the process that is a good one for us to follow, rather than be like I grew up with, just kind of cheap and tight-fisted and all those things. Go ahead.
I don't know. It's easy to rationalize why you shouldn't give to someone. You can think, they don't deserve it, or they're in their situation because of their own choices and blah, blah, blah. And it's easy to judge people and justify why you're not giving. And I'm not saying that there's not a place for that sometimes, because sometimes there is. You can hurt people by giving to them. Just, here you go, here you go, here you go. That's not always beneficial to the recipient. But it's hard because it's also easy to take it the other way and figure out all these reasons why you shouldn't give to someone when maybe you should. Don't you think?
Oh, yeah. I think we might want to try and be on the side of being overly generous, because this human tendency is to just wrap your arms around stuff and say, mine, 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 mine. And I've seen so many people pass away, and it's like, so you had a pile of stuff in your home that you have to wait around because you have so much. And it's just, why not do things that encourage others and expand the kingdom? And that's the way I look at it. And we're not talking about raising funds for this little channel. We're talking about the Christian lifestyle that's so important, that we shouldn't miss out on, that we just bless others. And there's a joy in that, just a wide and wonderful joy. And this passage Moses is speaking quite some time ago, and later on it says you don't put angles and spin on it. Don't figure out the year of Jubilee and calculate all this stuff. It's like we let go and just do things for God instead of looking at it. How can I benefit, or is this going to hurt me this way or that way? No, we have our needs met.
Yeah, I think we overanalyze sometimes, and I think you're right. We should err on the side of generosity, even though it might not always have the best outcome. But once we're doing what we're supposed to do and we're giving and being generous, what someone else does with those resources is not really our responsibility and not really our fault. I mean, there's a fine line there. We do want to be responsible with the resources that God has put under our management. But, he tells us to give. He tells us to be generous. And so I just don't see God coming back and blaming us if someone does something irresponsible or negative with, say, the money that we give them. And, you can always help people, buy food and do other things. And that's probably the best way to do it. But I guess you just got to be led by God in this, because it can get tricky.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's some situations where maybe, that if you give them cash, they'll misspend it and it won't be for good. So you find another way to bless them. And maybe bring groceries, whatever it is that you can figure out for that need, or put together a trust for, whatever. I think of single moms so often in the Bible, again and again, the orphan and the widow, those two areas, it's so important, and it's as if God's eye is upon those two groups of people, and it's our responsibility, if we're blessed, to share that blessing in the land. We're blessed so much.
Yeah, there's lots of ways to do it. You can pay somebody's energy bill, and you can pay things anonymously too. So, all right. Well, as always, thanks for your input, Pastor. Thanks for being here.
So good.